Welcome everybody to the third session in Arbinger Institute's Working Outward 4-part webinar series. Today, we're very pleased many of you are actually joining us for the first time for this highly anticipated session with Rob Newson, retired Navy SEAL. His presentation today, The 5 Pillars of Focus, has brought a lot of people out for the first time to this series. So welcome, we're glad to have you. You'll see a lot of people are checking in from all over the world in the chat. So please take a second to introduce yourself if you'd like. You'll see people from literally all over the planet, all sorts of different time zones. We're so thankful to have you all with us. That chat, because of all the people online at the same time, can get a little bit unwieldy and kind of hard for our moderators to see any of those questions that you might have or any issues you're having, specifically any questions you might have for Rob. Take those and put them in the Q&A. You'll see that button right at the bottom of your screen. So any questions you'd like to call out specifically for our moderators, go ahead, push that Q&A button, and you'll be able to put them there, and we're going to see them if you put them there rather than in the chat. You'll might have a couple of questions that are in that Q&A that are really common. One of them is this session being recorded? Yep. It's being recorded. We'll send out a link when it's done to all of you who've registered. So you can look forward to rewatching it and sharing it with anybody who couldn't be here today. And you'll also receive one tomorrow after our fourth presentation, After our fourth presentation tomorrow, you'll receive an email with a link to all 4 of our sessions from this series. So if you weren't able to attend the first 2, you'll still be able to watch them there. And they were great. So I highly recommend watching those. Following this presentation, I have the cool opportunity to talk with Rob one-on-one and take some of the questions, both from the Q&A here and the thousands that were submitted in advance of this presentation, and have a conversation with just me and Rob offline that will be recorded separately. And that is an exclusive interview that will live only on our website at arbinger.com/webinars. That's generally posted within about 48 hours of the presentation or of that conversation. So in a few days, hop on over there and go ahead and look for it. But in the meantime, actually all of our Q&As and presentations from our previous webinars already live there. So you're welcome to go and request access to those already. This presentation is being simultaneously broadcast on YouTube. So if you run into any issues with Zoom today, go to YouTube, search for Arbinger Institute, and it'll pop right up as a live video that's going on right now. So for today's presentation, I have the honor and privilege of speaking with Rob Newson, retired Navy SEAL and current VP of Strategy and Vision for the Philadelphia 76ers. Rob spent 30 years as a Navy SEAL and started no less than 6 new military organizations. He served as a federal executive fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and previously served as director of the White House Military Office. If you, like me, don't totally know what that means or what that entails, let me tell you. So being sorry, let me read that again. The Director of Military Support, I'm sorry, I'm going to mess up that title. Rob, I may ask you to clarify it. But in his role, he was the Director of Military Support to the President, including Air Force One, Marine One, Camp David, Presidential Food Service, and the White House Medical Office. So clearly, small job, Rob. If that isn't impressive enough, Rob is also really extensively educated. He has a bachelor's in computer science, a master's in defense analysis, an additional master's in national security affairs, and just for good measure, a PhD in leadership studies. Rob is joining us today from his home, or I guess from an Airbnb actually in San Diego. So Rob, welcome. We're really glad to have you here today.
Hey, Sarah, thank you.
So I know I completely butchered that resume and left out huge swaths on some very crazy and amazing things that you've done over your career. But for the sake of this presentation, I wanted to kind of narrow in on your time as a Navy SEAL. So can you give our audience maybe the miniature version, sort of the shorthand of what your career as a SEAL entailed?
Yeah, so 30 years, just shy of 30 years in the teams. Primarily, I was focused on strategy and counterterrorism. So early on, deployments to the Pacific, Philippines, Guam, and then as 9/11 happened, deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Kenya, Bosnia, all focused on getting after terrorist networks. So it was about gathering intelligence and supporting the SEALs as they went on target, and then kind of developing the strategy that we used to get after it.
So, easy job?
Enjoyable job.
Well, from what I know, you were awfully good at it. And the people that I know, that we know in common, have nothing but amazing things to say about you as a leader and as a person. So I'm really glad to have you. So recently, you spoke to a team of ER residents who are working on the front lines of the coronavirus, and you discussed some really critical areas that they can focus on right now. So what me and my team have done is we took those pillars of focus and broke them down into just 5 that I'd love to talk to you about today. So let me, for the sake of the audience, let me just list those out, and then Rob and I will talk about them specifically. So number 1 is shorten your time horizon. Number 2, focus outside of yourself. Number 3, find humor in the absurdity. Number 4, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And number 5, practice some self-care. So Rob, I'm going to jump right into this. When you say shorten your time horizon, what does that mean?
So this is really founded in SEAL training and what we call Hell Week, which is a week of marathon suffering. It goes on for 5 days. There's very little sleep. Pacific Ocean is incredibly cold. You're worn out. You're tired. And if you focus on what's coming next, if you focus on, oh my God, this is Monday and I have 5 more days to go, or it's the morning and I have a whole day to go before I get even to lunch where I can sit down, the task seems enormous. So the big takeaway when you're faced with an incredible task that includes challenge and suffering is just to focus on the immediate moment. Do the thing that's right in front of you and don't pull forward the pain and the trouble that's waiting for you next. Just focus on the immediate task and how you're going to achieve that. And then it's just really taking a bite out of the elephant and focusing on the now and not letting your mind wander into the enormous task list that's building as you take care of that.
So how would that apply now as we're all going through this crisis as a world community?
Yeah, so it's great in training, right? But the training was developed for SEALs to go to war. So it's applied for me as I've gone into war zones. It's applied as I became a single parent of 3 little kids, as I fought cancer, or in this piece when everyone is faced with some kind of disruption. Either it's simply a disruption of your routine, or it's a disruption of your job. You're not making money anymore, or you've got a serious health issue, or someone you care about is suffering from a health issue. You can get consumed by everything that's happening around you. So the point is, don't let that happen. Focus on the things you need to do right now to move forward and get your objectives, whatever that might be.
I love that. I want to move on to your second pillar that you talked about, which is focus outside of yourself. Now at Arbinger, that is analogous to our term, I think, an outward mindset. And I know that you've worked with Arbinger for a long time, or rather implemented Arbinger at a number of organizations, including the military. So in what ways can we focus outside of ourselves? What does that really mean?
What the key point here is everybody's a leader in one aspect or another, and leaders focus on others, and they try to lift them up. So in this mindset, the inward mindset in a time of suffering and challenge can focus on how hard it is, how much we're suffering, our own personal pain. And when you do that, you amplify it. You sap your will and you distract yourself from what you need to achieve. So with an outward mindset, if you focus on other people and helping them out in some small way, for a leader, if you focus on the organization and taking care of your people, then your own personal suffering is minimized and you're able to look outside yourself, and it just makes it easier to deal with the challenge if you're not focused on yourself.
How have you seen that play out? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, just through this coronavirus, and when the NBA shut down, and we are leading through an enormous challenge. We're playing an NBA game where one of the opposing players had the virus. Who knows how far it spread, and people could have a focus on themselves and kind of go inward. How am I going to protect myself? Or as a group, we can focus on, okay, what are the things we need to do to protect everyone else? What decisions do we need to make? What actions do we need to take? Who might be more at risk or be more concerned? Who needs to be lifted up? And so it's about kind of accepting your situation and focusing on others.
So from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, you joined the 76ers not that long ago, that you were fairly new in the role, and NBA season gets postponed, canceled. How is somebody in your position, you're VP of strategy and vision, but also a new guy, a new kid on the block. How did you, or how do you help others focus outside of themselves in that situation?
What it became much easier in crisis because, right, that's where I spent my last 30 years. You click into the muscle memory of leading in crisis. So I was very new. It wasn't even 2 months on the job. It was about 6 weeks when the whole thing blew up. And 10 days before that, we started a coronavirus task force, and we were thinking about what we need to do and how we're going to do it, led by our fantastic HR officer. And I kind of thought, oh, here's the new guy. He's getting shoved into one of these little task forces because nobody else wants to do it. But as we hit the crisis, it was, it was second nature to step in and kind of do crisis response. But it also, I went back to those lessons. What's my focus? Is it inward or outward? How do I approach this? And am I concerned about everything that's going on, which is enormous in the organization, or am I focused on the here and now? So it was kind of put my introduction to the team on afterburners.
Did you notice an impact with the people you were working with?
Oh, without a doubt. No, all the leaders in the organization stepped up and were really, really focused on two things. They were focused on ensuring the people had a focus on the purpose, which as soon as the season was put into hiatus, it was, are we ready to get back whenever that would happen? And they were focused on providing some level of psychological safety, both from an economic and employment perspective and just in a human perspective. A lot of reaching out, checking on people, and seeing what help they needed. So it was certainly, my presence was noted, but I wouldn't say it was an outlier from the rest of the leadership team. A great group pulling together to take care of each other and the people that work with them.
I want to move on to your third pillar of focus here. So our first two, we had shorten your time horizon and then focus outside of yourself. Now the third one is find humor in the absurdity. And I love that. I love that phrase, and I feel like it belongs on a needlepoint hanging on my wall. Find humor in the absurdity as a key of the 5 points of focus. I think that's really telling that of 5 things, that takes up a whole number 3. What does that mean, finding humor in the absurdity? What does that mean sort of on the broader scale, and what does it mean to you as a SEAL?
Yeah, so SEALs, grew up, you go through SEAL training, and you can do no right. They're going to find something to punish you for and put you through the ringer on. And most instructors did it if you were watching, did it in a very funny way. And then you grow up and become a SEAL, and you go to war, and you're seeing tragedy and suffering. You can just be deploying to a developing country and see the circumstances people live in. And there's humanity and suffering in everything we do, including in the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic. So the point is that it's okay to laugh even in the worst of circumstances. And there is absurdity and nonsense and humor in life, and you should grab onto it. It's great medicine when you're suffering, and it's a way to bond with your teammates. I didn't know this until I was talking to a buddy, and he said that the British Special Forces actually put their people through classes on how to be funny, because it matters so much. American SEALs just come naturally to it, I guess.
So you were able to find humor and ways to laugh when you were in Afghanistan and Yemen and Iraq?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's a balance, right? It's not ignoring the enormous weight of the situation and the costs that it's taking, but it's accepting the harmony of life, right? I just started taking up yoga not too long ago, and we were in a position and the muscles were burning and it was horrible. And the instructor said, look, find the ease in the effort. And that's, to me, what the humor and the absurdity is we're struggling and there's great effort, but you can relax your face and you can take a laugh and find the ease in that effort.
I like that. That's really lovely. And I might still needlepoint that and put it on my wall. I'm sure other people in here are going to do the same. If someone in the audience wants to go ahead and send that to me, that would be great. I have no idea how to needlepoint. So number 4, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now for me, this one kind of made me a little bit squirmy. And this past couple of weeks, or however long it's been, because I feel like I'm kind of unmoored from time right now, I've been really uncomfortable. And I know that I'm very fortunate, but it's still hard. How do I get comfortable in the uncomfortable? What does that really mean?
So this is an unsettling time, and I reflected both back to SEAL training, and they get you wet and sandy, and this is a great metaphor. Sand is all over, and the instructor will say, "Don't bother wiping the sand off. Your goal is not to get comfortable. You have a mission, you have an objective. Focus on that, not on your comfort level." And when I was talking to the Cornell and Columbia ER residents, I was thinking about what they're going to do, what they are dealing with right now, and overcrowded hospitals and people dying and them making tough decisions. And it's not about finding a place where there's comfort in that, where you can remove the discomfort. We're in it and you can't get out of it. We don't control when this ends. The point is that you have to sit in it, live with it without trying to remove it. If you're focusing your energy on removing discomfort, you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen. There isn't a way, in some circumstances, there's not a way to get out of the discomfort except through it. And so the point is to get comfortable with what you're doing and get through it, fight to the other end.
Now, one of the things you said in that presentation was the human body and our unbreakable will are amazing things. And I'm sure there have been times throughout all the many roles you've had in your career where you've seen that. Can you tell us an example of that, when you've seen the unbreakable human will in action?
Well, I think there's numerous stories of SEALs in combat And Marcus Luttrell is a great example of a guy that's isolated in Afghanistan and just fights and fights to survive and get through. But I'll tell you, where I saw it the most is battling cancer, and you go into the chemotherapy ward, and I was incredibly fortunate. But you see people that are just suffering so much in not only the disease, but in the treatment. One of my best friends is a longtime cancer fighter, and it amazes me. I call her the hard chick. She just is fighting through constantly, and it's that unbreakable will that is in the human spirit that all of us have. This is not unique to Navy SEALs or military people or anybody else. It's a skill that you develop. It's a muscle that you develop, and that you can use. And so we've seen it that your body can endure so much more than you know. And it's not what your body can do, it's what your mind will drive you towards. If your mind is focused on the right things, right? If you have an outward mindset, if you're focused on the here and now, if you find some humor, then your unbreakable will see you through.
Well, you mentioned the outward mindset. How does your mindset, so going back to that your second point of focusing outside of yourself, how does that impact our ability to develop and exercise that muscle, like you said, developing that sort of unbreakable will?
Oh, it's 100% related. I had the great opportunity. So every SEAL class is numbered, and my SEAL class was 163. It was the last time. It was a really hard class. After that, it got really easy. But when it got to 263, my centennial class, I was a senior officer, and I said, "Hey, can I go back and do a little mentoring with these guys?" And the main point I talked about when you're going through difficult times is your self-talk. If your self-talk is focused on you and your issues in an Arbinger mindset, right? If you're latched on to a red flag, if you're blaming, if you're focused on yourself and how you justify yourself or how you're suffering, then you're only walking towards that bell. In Hell Week, and through Buds, if you want to quit, all you have to do is go ring the bell 3 times. And so for us, the symbol of quitting is the bell. And when you're focused on yourself, you're taking a step towards quitting. If you're focused on other people, on the mission, on our objectives, then that suffering is minimized, right? Your mind is only going to focus on a thing at a time. And so if you have the right focus, if you have that outward mindset, it doesn't take it away. You're still uncomfortable. You're still suffering, but you can get comfortable in that when you're focused on the right stuff, if you have an outward mindset.
I love that idea that the inward mindset is the first step toward quitting. I think that's how you said it. I love that. Somebody in the chat, write that down for me and send it to me, because I will forget it. And I love that. That's such a pithy way of saying that. Let's move on to your 5th point of focus. And for the benefit of everybody watching, I'm going to restate the first 4 quickly. So first, we had shorten your time horizon. Second, focus outside of yourself. Third, find humor in the absurdity. And fourth, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the 5th point here, I think, is really interesting one, Rob, particularly from your role as a SEAL. And that is to practice self-care. What does that mean? That's not something you hear a lot from, and maybe that's me being ill-informed, but that's not really something I would imagine to hear a lot from a sort of hardened SEAL with 30 years experience.
Yeah, well, we've learned a lot through, 2 decades almost of combat. And we didn't think about this as we started and as we went through. But one is look, take care of yourself because we're depending on you, right? Other people in your life are depending on you. And if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't fill yourself up, you can't pour yourself out. And so self-care and in the SEAL teams are the way we talk about like psychological health and well-being has completely changed. Today, we think about it like you're going to the gym. And that's, we can talk about SEALs going to the gym all day long, and every SEAL understands what we're talking about. And so go to the mental gym, right? If you're, especially in these times, you're going to take some blows and your heart's going to be bruised. Go see a psychologist or a chaplain or a friend and talk about the things that you need to talk about. It never helps to shove it down and to ignore it. And that's our lesson, I think, in the military is we've seen so many suicides and people who don't reach out for help, because the mentality used to be, look, I'm damaged goods if I ask for help. I'm broken if I want to get better. And I had a great leader and friend who used to say, you don't have to be broken to get better. You don't have to be sick to get healthy, right? It's like going to the gym. When you go to the gym, it's not because you're broken, it's because you're going to get stronger. If you're going to seek counseling, or if you're going to talk to somebody about something you're struggling with, it's not because you're damaged, it's because you're strong enough to try to find to get help. I'll tell you, I'm very concerned about our health workers, because we've seen this trend within the military, and our health workers are seeing some things that cause moral injury. And so I think as a nation, we need to band together and talk about self-care and taking care of each other.
That's beautiful, Rob. I love that. You don't have to be sick to get better. So we have quite a few people on right now. There's a lot of people listening, both here and watching on our YouTube channel. You've got kind of a pulpit at the moment, different time zones, different countries, lots of different struggles and different experiences, both now and just throughout all of our lives. What do you want to say to them? What do we say to this group?
I think that some of us are eternal optimists, and so it can come off as a little Pollyannish to say, hey, we're gonna get through this, right? I've been around the world. I've seen incredible suffering, and I've seen the humanity not only in the struggle, but in the fight to get out of whatever situation people are in. And so it's a global and human aspect of this to believe in the future. So I saw the one message I think is it goes back to this self-talk. And at the very least, there's a theory about neutral talk. If you can't get positive about something, don't ever get negative inside your head. Don't have a self-talk conversation that talks about how bad things are or what you don't want to happen. Talk at least in neutral terms so that negative talk doesn't drag you down. It can be an undertow if you give in to that.
Rob, we are we're very just about out of time. But I want to thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing your insights as a SEAL and throughout your career, and I don't know, helping me feel a little bit better anyway. I hope other people were able to get a lot out of it as well. So thank you so much, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for everybody that took time to listen. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you to everyone who joined us today. Rob really is an inspiration, and I personally feel really fortunate to be able to speak with him. And as I mentioned at the top of the hour, I will also have the opportunity just following this to have a Q&A with just Rob. That's offline. We record it separately, and that interview will only live on our website at arbinger.com/webinars. You can actually see it right there on that slide, arbinger.com/webinars. And that conversation will be posted sometime in the next 48 hours if you want to come find it there. If you have not yet taken a second to follow Arbinger on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, those are our 4 social media places of choice, LinkedIn being the best of the 4 for us, the place we engage the most often. Please take a minute and go follow us there on LinkedIn and keep in touch. Let us know what you're up to and we'll let you know what we're up to. If you choose to share something on social media today and about some of the insights you've learned from Rob, please tag Arbinger and use the hashtag outward mindset. The hashtag outward mindset will allow us to see what you're sharing and share some of that back with Rob and let him know what an awesome job he did. What a killer conversation that is and how inspiring his career and his perspective really are. So tomorrow is our final presentation in this 4-part webinar series, Distance or Disconnect, Coming Together When Your Team is Apart. And that's going to be presented by Cameron Cousins. So please join us then tomorrow at same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you haven't registered yet, if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you'd like to share that or even this presentation, because we will send out that final email tomorrow with links to all of the conversations that we've had in this series, go to arbinger.com/webinars and you'll be able to find the registration link there as well. Again, thank you so much for joining us and we'll see you tomorrow.